coming at a different time.
Yeah, greetings and welcome back to PSCM Mojo session. And this week we'll be looking at the Caribbean and the Chinese investing in the Caribbean, and to say what is the motive why the Chinese is pouring so much money in that region of the world. Because we know that when China does put forward heavy investment, there's always a price to pay. So that will be our main topic tonight. But as usual, before we go into our main topic, we will go to Ndugwe Imani for a change of energy. So now I'll pass you over to Ndugwe Imani.
I'm going to keep it to the side. Okay, all right. So, Asante Sana. Hamjambo Jama, which basically means greetings, kindred, and greetings to Baba Mandingo and Baba Ras McCoy for joining us today. So we're going to go through a ritual that we use in the PACM to change the energy that we've devised. Where we're in virtual space and we don't have the blessing of being together in the same space, and so we can join through universal consciousness and spirit just the same. So before I begin, I have to ask Baba Ras McCoy and Baba Mandingo if I may proceed.
Yes, you may proceed.
Yeah. All right then, Asante Sana Wate. Okay, so let me just share my screen in Dugutahaga.
Okay. All right, it's coming up.
Is it there in Dugutahaga?
Yes, yeah, it's up.
Okay, okay, lovely. Asante. So yes, it's called Mabadili Kayanishati in Kiswahili language, means change of energy. The Pan-African Congress movement uses Kiswahili as its language. As from the 6th Pan-African Congress, it was said that if there was ever to be an United States of Africa, that the lingua franca, the language of commerce, the language of education, would be Kiswahili, as it's most spoken on the continent, not stopping or not respecting all the other languages and dialects of all the other ethnic groups, but as a language for unity, Kiswahili. So this ritual uses Kiswahili. It also uses Kemetic terms, but has respect for all the other forms of spirituality that we Africans have developed and created over time as a gift from the All, the Creator. And everything will be on screen so you can follow. And if you wish to participate, please do. If you don't, that's absolutely fine, because African spirituality is not about coercion. Okay, so, but first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to center ourselves, become calm, and make that link between our spiritual selves and our physical selves. And the bridge of that is our breath. So if you wish to participate, please, if you would sit straight in whichever chair you're sitting in, if possible, feet flat on the floor, hands on your palms on the thighs of your legs, and your back straight, so your energy centers are all in line. And we're going to breathe together 4 times, and 4 because 4 is the spiritual number for health, and it's for growth, and it's for abundance. So when we exhale or breathe out, we're going to pull our stomachs in, and that will expel the air from our lungs. And then as we breathe in, we relax our stomach, and that will allow the air to rush in through our nose. And I will do the count so we know where we are. So we will begin. So if we breathe out, hold it, and now relax and breathe in. Hold it, and now breathe out. Fully expand all the air. And now relax, breathe in. That's in Mbili, 2. And now breathe out. Pulling that stomach in. And relax. Breathe in for the nose. Tatu. And now breathe out. Hold it. And relax the stomach and breathe into the nose. In there. Okay, so that should have made us all more centered and started to feel more calm and more present. So I'll continue. To change the energy or vibration, we now thank the powers, tasks that we have a closer connection with them, and they assist us in manifesting our objectives. And in order to do that, I'm going to play this triangle chime 7 times. The 7 is a spiritual number for wisdom, seeking, and truth. And we see it throughout existence. 7 colors in the spectrum, 7 major notes, 7 layers to the skin, 7 laws of Tahuti, and so on. A very powerful number of spirit. So as I ring the chime 7 times, if you just continue to breathe deeply, and you can keep your eyes open or closed. Moja. Mbili. Tatu. Ine. Let the vibration go over you, round you, over you, and through you. Tano. This allows us to become one with the vibration where we are, connect with universal consciousness, and thereby connecting with each other wherever we are in the world. Sita. Saba. So I'll now continue. So now this is the call and response section. So hopefully you can hear me, and mic is unmuted so you can participate if you wish to. So I'll say the first, and then we will repeat together. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja here. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja, which means we are one, or we are the same thing. Ninaomba Yamaomba Awote. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja.
Kitu Kimoja.
Ninaomba Ya Nebacha. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. Okay. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya mamiwata. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Shu. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Tefnut. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Nut. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. And now we go on to the Paut Netaru, the company of the aspects of Wote. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Geb. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Alset. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Sebek. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Hetaru. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Haru. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Herakuti. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. These principles of powers are not only at the basis of all existence, but also within us, in our own psyches. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Maat. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Sakar. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Tehuti. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Ausar. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Amen. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. And now we can call upon those ancestors who are in our direct bloodlines. I'll start. Ninaomba Ujime Kelly. Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba Aislinn Rattigan.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Anyone else you wish to call? No? Okay. So we'll continue. Now we can call upon those ancestors who are not in our direct bloodline, but have given their blood, sweat, tears, effort, time, and their lives for our communities, for our nation, and for our race. Ninaomba Mzee, the Honorable Marcus Mazar Garvey. Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba ya Santiwa.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba wazee Amy Ashwood Garvey na Amy Jacques Garvey. Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba Sheikh Amadou Bamba.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba Mzee Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba Helen Saturi Jata.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba Mzee Alhaj Malik Shabazz. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba Mzee Betty Shabazz. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba Mzee Buzumuzulu Credo Umtwa. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. And now we can give the thanks to those ancestors who we don't know their names, but they've given us a fantastic legacy. So first of all, those who we should never forget. Ninaomba mababu ya Mangamazi. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba mababu ya Gulavita. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba mababu ya Asian Revolution. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba mababu ya taifa la Kemet na Tarseti. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba mababu ya Twa na Hutu. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninawaomba wanaishi ambao watatetea sisi na wale mababu ambao bado hawajazaliwa. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. And now we end on the words of power and the affirmation. Just repeat after me. Nguvu zote.
Nguvu zote.
Kwa watu wetu.
Kwa watu wetu.
Na mapenzi ya wote.
Na mapenzi ya wote.
Ni mapenzi yetu.
Ni mapenzi yetu.
Okay, sawa. Asanteni sana.
Okay, let's just, yeah, if you can unmute your mics, Ras McCoy. Okay. Okay, thank Santisana to Ndugu Imani. And our guest today is Mandingo, Brother Mandingo, and Ras McCoy. Now, before we actually start the meeting, I'll pass you over to each of them just to give a little background on themselves. So I'll start with Brother Mandingo. Brother Mandingo?
Background?
Yeah,
yes, a background to ourselves.
About yourself. Just introduce yourself.
Yes, yes. I am Mandingo, African from Jamaica, and inspired by the greatest Pan-Africanist leader ever, Marcus Messiah Garvey, whose first wife, Amy Ashford Garvey, was my mother's cousin, and also his son, Marcus Garvey Jr., the son of his second wife, Amy Jakes Garvey, who was my physics teacher at Kingston Technical High School in Jamaica in the 1960s. And Marcus Garvey Jr., myself, Loxley Comrie, Elder Cyril Stewart, Brother Newman, Brother Thomas, and others, we formed the African Nationalist Union political party in Jamaica in 1968. And I also knew and was a regular visitor to the home of Amy Jakes Garvey, the mother of my physics teacher, Marcus Garvey Jr., who I learned a lot from her also. I'm a journalist, a record producer, and a civil engineer. And of course, a Pan-Africanist from my school days, and I've never wavered from being a Pan-Africanist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see, Ras McCoy just coming back in. Okay. Yes, Ras McCoy. So now I'll put you up on the screen.
Yes, I am Ras McCoy. I'm a Rastaman and natural mystic. I'm a radio presenter as well.
All right.
On Galaxy.
All right.
.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, that's good. So, like I said, today's title is Why is China investing so heavily in the Caribbean? Because if we see what China, say, for example, has done in Africa, we can see there's a lot of what I would say trickery behind it. Yes, they come and they put in infrastructure, much needed in many cases, I'll give them that. Yes, they have changed the dynamics and changed the whole game. Because remember, before these countries, especially Caribbean countries, had to go to the IMF, which the IMF put forward policies which absolutely devastated the economies of those islands. So therefore, China came along and China says, we will not play by the rules of the IMF. In fact, we have our own rules. And you can see which island you want to pick in the Caribbean, you can see massive infrastructural projects has been put forward. But the question is, what is China going to get in return? Just before we go into the talk, I'd quickly like to put this. Let me see if I can get it up. Yeah, and this is just to say, why has China poured billions into the Caribbean by investing in ports, roads, holiday resorts, hotels? Is it a soft power grab? That's something we have to bear in mind. Now we have the absurd situation where the British has recently accused China for Barbados, saying they would like to renounce the Queen as head of state. So I'll just start with that. So I'll now pass over to anyone can come in on this just to expand the discussion. So either Mandingo or Russ McCoy, what would you like to say about just China's presence in the Caribbean first? What do you think they're doing there? What do you think they're after?
Well, China. All right, go on, Mandingo. Go on.
No, you go. All right, okay, all right. First of all, for me, who I am aware of what is happening as a Pan-Africanist, this is not a question as to why. It is known. China is in the Caribbean as she is in Africa and elsewhere in the world as part and parcel of her project of colonization of the Caribbean for Chinese interests. So this is not a question to be asked. It is obvious. The Chinese are in China as they are in Africa for their own interests. And they are in rivalry with those who were the former colonizers, the Europeans who were the former colonizers. So that's a fight between the Europeans and the Chinese in terms of which one of them should be colonizing the Caribbean for their own benefit. And of course, the Caribbean is overwhelmingly African in population, and we know why this is so historically. So it is the duty of Pan-Africanists in the Caribbean to work with Pan-Africanists in Africa to defeat both the European and the Chinese their projects of the colonization of the Caribbean. And talking about the hypocritical British regime accusing the Chinese of asking Barbados to replace Queen Elizabeth II as the head of state is utter nonsense, because that was a demand that was made many years ago by Pan-Africanists from Barbados. And even Barrow, our former prime minister, had said that many, many years ago. And at that time, there was no Chinese presence politically and otherwise in the Caribbean. So the British are merely looking scapegoats where this is concerned. And let us remember that for many, many years, Marcus Garvey Jr., myself, and other Pan-Africanists, and before us, have always called for and demanded that Jamaica should be a republic, because the head of state of Jamaica should be someone from Jamaica and not a foreigner as the head of state of Jamaica. Because in Jamaica, the Governor General does not represent the people of Jamaica, but represents the monarch of Britain, and not just the monarch of Britain, but the monarch of Britain's heirs and successors. So it is for us not to sit idly by and wonder. It is for us to defeat Chinese, European, Indian, whatever non-African imperialist project in the Caribbean. And that can only be achieved by the implementation of Marcus Garvey's black print solution of self-reliance in every area of life that he gave us, in the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, in African fundamentalism. These things are found, etc.
Mm-hmm. So, Ras McCoy, so what's your take on
Yes,
that?
I concur with most of what I'm said here. And like, we all know that China is doing for China. China not doing for Africans, China not doing for Caribbean. China is doing for China, Europeans and for Europeans. The Indians, which we have mentioned, is also playing a game in Africa, and they will soon move to the Caribbean as well. Everybody is scrambling for Africa and the Caribbean. Anywhere that we are and don't want to take responsibility for our own leadership and for our own development, because we are building up other people's country. Only for black people in North America, US and Canada, I build up those countries. Them they are Europe, yeah, where they are Europe, yeah, build up Europe. Because these government that them put in place, whether they be straight colonization like Jamaica and Barbados, as Pandigo just described, even when them have the title Republican, them still is submissive to the European and other foreign powers. And like, so China now, what China has done now, China has come with a debt canalization process. So in the past, we did go through shock of slavery and so-called colonialism. But China is using debt now as an instrument to put people back into slavery. In fact, the Europeans are doing it as well, and they did it before. But now China has come now and doing what the Europeans used to do, and has replaced them now. And this is where the conflict is. And one of the big arguments that is out there is that Africa will be a war ground between the Europeans, and when I say European, I mean white people in general, whether them they are America, because America come in like the headquarters now for the white people, like how the Byzantine Empire did their Istanbul, but did that represent Rome. So America, they are Washington DC, that represent the white people and for and the whole European system. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Israel, you name it. So
Okay.
all these people now used to play that role. Now China has come for them slice of the cake. And we are in danger of having another Berlin type conference again in terms of splitting up Africa to different colonizers. We are in that danger, and if we don't stand up firm, and we see China on several occasions using its economic power to meddle in the internal affairs of African nations. For example, when the Dalai Lama tribe was South Africa, the Chinese tell what the brother, I think Azuma in did name, say, them can't go there. Otherwise, we're not going to do this and we're not going to do that. But more importantly, the question I want to ask, we can't build road. We can't build all these normal infrastructure. We can't do it. We are building it for other people. We can't do it for ourselves. You understand? Road is, even if we can't do the surface part of it, we must can dig a foundation and run through bulldozer. But when the Chinese come in your country, them come with everybody because Chinese use prisoners. The same system them adapt from the America with the chain gang. These are modernized chain gang where them bring in a them container, whole container ship come and the whole of them, and them alone do the work. Nobody else do the work. So them can't afford to do it cheaper. And this is why it's attractive. And them also come with a bribe with it. So them bribe the leaders, or the so-called leaders, I should have said. Them bribe them. Because Europe the other day, they say, okay, well, if you bribe the thing, the companies will get fined and so on. China don't have these rules. China have 1.4 or 1.5 billion people to feed, and they are going around the world making sure that they can feed them and make them live comfortable. And it's us to do the same for our people. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put up, just before you come in, Manding, I'm going to put up this. Hope everybody can see it. That's, let me see, enlarging it as much as I can. Let's see. Let's see. Right. Is that a bit bigger?
Yes, I can see them.
Right. So this is just an example of this kind of sums of money that China has been pouring into these economies. For instance, Jamaica, $2.7 billion was poured in. And you know, those familiar with Jamaica would know they cut the road from Kingston right up to Montego Bay. And it's now a toll road. And from what I'm getting, it's half empty. It's most empty most of the time because most people can't afford to drive on it. And remember, all the money collected from the toll goes straight to China. And there's whole lot more besides as well. If we see Trinidad, 1.9 billion invested in Trinidad. We see Barbados, 490 million. Little Antigua, we see, got 1 billion. And the interesting thing with Antigua, you know, 1 billion. And you wonder, what does his economy turn over? So how can it ever pay back that kind of debt? The Bahamas, as we can see, 450 million again. And even Cuba, we have 600 million. So we can see China's not joking when it comes to splashing out the money. And it seems like there's a lot of ready takers in the Caribbean. But my question is, that debt burden, what is it doing to the economy of those islands? Yes, Mandingo, come in.
Yes, first of all, I never use the terms white and black when it comes down to identification, because no one is white and no one is black. These are inaccurate terms. Africans are Africans wherever we are. Europeans are Europeans wherever they are on planet Earth. Chinese are Chinese wherever they are. Indians are Indians wherever they are. So the only race of people where we have some of our people who refuse to identify themselves with respect to their place of origin are people in the African race. Chinese are proud to be Chinese, whether they were born in China or not, speak the language or not. And the same goes for Arabs, Europeans, etc. So let's deal with the fact that knowing yourself, as Marcus Garvey said, self-identification is totally important. We are Africans, one term. And this is what Marcus Garvey Jr. continued as his father said. Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. And the Caribbean is little Africa. All the islands of the Caribbean belong to us as Africans. Tomorrow, which is Monday the 12th, is African Holocaust Day, which was decreed as African Holocaust Day on the 12th of October, 1492, by Marcus Garvey Jr., who was the 7th President General of his father's UNIA and ACL organization. And this was about the fact that it was on the 12th of October that Christopher Columbus, in the service of King Ferdinand of Spain and Queen Isabella of Spain, invaded the Western Hemisphere and landed at the island known as Guanani, that he, typical racist fashion, renamed San Salvador. Okay? And it is about the fact that this is a situation that we always commemorate, just as European Jews commemorate what Adolf Hitler and other Germans did to them. And this is not living in the past. Just like the European Jews, they don't live in the past when every year they commemorate what Adolf Hitler did to them. It is to remember what happened in the past as a reminder and a lesson for it not to happen again. Because if you forget the lessons of the past, the mistakes of the past will occur again. So we remember history, not in terms of living in the past, but using the lessons of the past to know why we are in the situation that we are in the future, to chart a positive future for ourselves. I am also a radio presenter and radio DJ internationally, Jamaica, here, etc., and in Mother Africa for many, many years. And earlier I explained that I'm also a civil engineer. I, as a civil engineer, because Ras McCoy asked the question, rhetorically, it was a rhetorical question, that if we can't build roads, and of course we can build roads. As a civil engineer in the 1970s, I was one of the civil engineers who built the Maypen Bypass Road. I am an African, and the other engineers, the laborers, the carpenters, the masons, etc., who were involved, were all Africans from Jamaica. So we have the capacity to build our own highways. We don't need Chinese or Europeans or anyone to build roads for us and bridges. We have done that in the past, and we can do that. But misleaders, because they are not leaders, misleaders, what they have done is that the civil engineering companies in Jamaica and elsewhere in the Caribbean and their workers, the employees, have been put out of jobs. Because the jobs that they could do, these misleaders who should be expelled from office, and we have to work to do that, have made the Chinese come in, not just with their administrative staff, but with their entire labor force. They bring carpenters, masons, etc. What does that mean in the Caribbean and in Africa? It means that our masons, our carpenters, our labor force, our civil engineers, our electrical engineers, our mining engineers are unemployed. What are they supposed to do in the land of their birth and are not able to use the skills that they have? This is treachery, most traitorous. And this is something that we should not tolerate. We should not tolerate this. This is put, in fact, in Jamaica, you have had workers who have protested against this situation, whereby the Chinese have brought in their labor force to be doing jobs that the Jamaican labor force can do. And this is the same situation that they are doing in Africa, in Mozambique, Angola, and other places, Zambia, etc. In some places, they even have signs in Chinese in some African countries. This is intolerable. And as part of the cultural imperialism to enslave the minds, they are promoting the teaching of Chinese Mandarin language in our schools. This is very, very dangerous. This is another way, following in the pattern of Europeans who impose their European languages on our people, the same way that the Arabs impose their Arabic language under the guise of their religion, Islam. And let us notice at the same time, the Chinese do not allow non-Chinese people to come and reside in China. They do not allow that. The Europeans, we know this, they do not want non-Europeans to reside in Europe. And when I say Europe, I'm including this island called Britain. So they want to, as Marcus Garvey Jr. said in the 1960s, China is overpopulated, just like Europe was overpopulated. India is overpopulated, just like Europe was overpopulated. What did they do? They put their surplus population by force into places that are now called New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and the USA, etc. The Chinese and the Indians, don't forget the Indians, are doing the same type of thing to plant their surplus populations in the Caribbean and in Africa. You know what that means? It means genocide for the African race if we do not protect ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Mandingo, that's a very apt point you make about the spreading out of their population, because I remember reading something and being told by people who attended the 6th Pan-African Congress in Dar es Salaam in 1974. They said actually China and India were given observer status. And China and India made a couple of demands, and one of them was, as you say, 2 countries with over 1 billion people. They saw their population growing, as they said at the time, uncontrollably. And they turned around and said to Africa, Africa must be the natural overflow for their population. And that was requested in 1974. And we can see before our eyes now that scenario is now taking place.
And what that means the murder, the genocide of the African race. And this must not be tolerated. Take, for example, it is most disgraceful that the so-called OAU, now called AU, building in Addis Ababa was built by the Chinese. This is a shame. Any African, Pan-African building, if it were Pan-African, should have been built by us as Africans. You are getting the Chinese to build your own African headquarters. You know what that means? It means that they have installed listening devices, spying devices, surveillance devices, because they are the ones who have built it, you know. So that there's nothing that you can discuss in private in what is supposed to be your African HQ. And it goes to show that the vast majority of those in African states are misleaders and puppets, traitors who work against the interests of the African race.
Okay. So I'll bring in, just before I bring in Russ McCoy, I'd like to put up another quick, just to prompt the argument, because today we are specifically focusing on the Caribbean. And it says, is one of the reasons China is investing billions of dollars into the Caribbean and signing tax and trade deals an attempt to wrestle the region from the sphere of influence from the West, to wrestle it away from the West and put it under their sphere of influence. China investment typically comes with requirements to use, as we said before, Chinese laborers, and the loans that they provide, then you are indebted to Beijing, and they can then have that they can then manipulate you in whichever way they see fit. So again, just looking at the Caribbean again, because we see it, America said it's in its backyard and nothing should happen in the Caribbean without their say. Well, China is down there. And Britain, Britain, France, a lot of those are the colonizers, ex-colonizers, and yet we see China is pushing them aside and now taking their place as the new colonial power in the Caribbean. So I'd just like to bring in Russ.
Yeah, let me just say two things quickly. We must also stop using this term about West sphere of influence. Call it what it is, European sphere of influence. West does not mean anything. Call it what it is, European sphere of influence. That is what it is. When they use the term West, it's to disguise and to try to nullify the effect that it's Europeans we are talking about. It's a European sphere of influence.
Yeah, too true. Yes, Russ McCoy, come in.
Well, Takara, you said that we should separate, but me is a wholesome man, we can't separate the issue between Africa and the Caribbean, because we are one people. And it's one project them depend. It's just that them have them hands in this pie and that pie and that pie. So we have to work together as a race of people. You understand? As the African race, we have to work together. And you see, when the Europeans and the Arab came, other Africans ignore what was being done to other Africans until it became too late. You understand? So we see what going on in Africa and we see it come at the Caribbean. And that it's just colonization, slavery, I should have said. Everything is about slavery. Who can get the cheapest labor? You understand? And China use them own people as a cheap labor and drive we out of the market, out of the labor market. Because me see them come to Jamaica, a place called Freeport. And the locals there was protesting because they couldn't get no work. All these building workers couldn't get no work, and they were building the Freeport down there. And they were describing the process, which we speak about earlier, where them bringing everything. Them don't want black people for nothing. The only thing they might do is them say a donkey or a cow and think them take them and eat them. But apart from that, everything else come from China. I think all them food come from China too. And they are not allowed to mix with the local population because they don't want the rest of the world to know say a prisoner them are use. You understand? So the slightest little mistake you make a China, you can end up in a gulag type situation. You understand? This is how the Chinese are run them things. Is it no different from Stalin or Hitler or any one of them, or Genghis Khan or Columbus? It's a criminal operation.
The
You
British
understand?
do the same thing. And the
Yeah,
French.
all of them. Remember, say all imperialists do it, all imperialists do it. Because the word conquer is a pretty name for robbery and theft and murder and rape. You understand? That's why the word conquer meaning that somebody will come thief your things and murder you and rape you and take the spoils. That's what it's all about. But this time now, they're not coming with guns. They are coming with some piece of paper. Some confetti money, and I tell you. Because earlier me hear you describe how them come with a whole heap of billion. They don't come with nothing. What them come with is some machine and some people. They're not giving no money. They're not giving no money at all, you know. The only people probably who get money are the corrupt politician them and a few corrupt civil servants who get the money. If you allow them to come into the country, come do these things. Like man Bingo said, him work on the Maypen bypass. Right? We were building road long before. Remember, say Nyland Road built at Jamaica, we call it Nyland Road, but it used Washington Boulevard, we know it as now. But a Nyland Road, that's the first one where them start to use this thing what we call Barbados, this tarmac what them are using nowadays, because before we used to throw gravel. We used to throw the tar and then throw the gravel on it and use the roller. Now them come with everything mixed up in a one and hot and steam and push it up.
Yes.
Yeah, Ras McCoy just freeze.
Yeah.
Yes,
right, yes.
Yeah, let's come to you, man. All right.
Yeah, that's it. That's
the matter.
All right.
Yeah. So
until then, let's see.
No.
Why? Yeah, you freeze up for a bit. So could you just make the last point again? No, it still freeze up. All right, one thing. Go carry on.
Yes. The thing about it, as I said, you know, as when you had mentioned about dealing with the Chinese threat, colonization in the Caribbean, I was saying that is inextricably linked to Africa. It's the same thing. Because we are Africans and our situation is the same.
Take it up.
So we can only work on defeat by working together. Africans in Africa, Africans in the Caribbean, and Africans in Britain, the USA. So it's worldwide in terms of us as Africans, because it affects us as Africans, whether we live in Britain, Canada, etc. What happens in the Caribbean and Africa? There's no separation. It is all involved. We are all connected because we share the same outcome and the same fate. Just as the Chinese, wherever they are in the world, they are Chinese and they put Chinese interests first. Europeans put European interests first. We as Africans, as Marcus Garvey correctly said, must always put African interests first wherever we are. This is why Marcus Garvey said race first, not about geography first, race first.
All right, so let's look at it this way. The Chinese would say, them never forced them way in, them was invited in. These countries say them wanted infrastructure, them lack infrastructure. So China then said, look, it is prepared to come and build that infrastructure. And then they were invited in. You know, they never invade no country. They never take over nobody. The countries invited them in. So they would say that. That's how they got there. And it seems that also they would say, it seems like if you look in Africa and you look at the Caribbean, the resultant factor of them being there and in building roads and building bridges it has made the life of those people in those lands much better. It has improved their lives dramatically. Because where do you see people en masse rising up and say, let's drive out the Chinese, we don't want them, we don't want them to build roads, we'll make do with what we have. So looking from a Chinese point of view, they would say they're doing something that's needed. And it's those countries themselves that welcome them. In fact, you have delegations from the Caribbean and from Africa going to China and virtually begging them to come and invest in those particular countries. So how would you counter that?
You're very wrong where that is concerned. You're very wrong where that is concerned. And the reason why you're very wrong is that our countries did not invite them. Traitors invited them. You have to make the distinction between Pan-Africanists and traitors. Our countries did not invite them, neither in the Caribbean or in Africa. Traitors invited them. Get that straight. Don't spread this false thing about our countries invited them. That's a lie. Traitors, collaborators, enemies of the African race invited these foreign imperialists. Get that straight. Our countries did not invite them. And our people have been resisting this Chinese presence in the Caribbean, in Jamaica and elsewhere. That has happened. And it has also happened in African countries where we have had people in Kenya and Mozambique and elsewhere who have protested
and Zambia
and who have been killed. So do not give this false impression about our people have not been rising up and protesting. What has happened is that when our people do that, these same traitors send out traitorous police and soldiers to kill our people. We are in a situation of war. This is what it is. So you have to get this thing straight. We did not invite them. Traitors did. And the war is between the Pan-Africanists, wherever we are in the Caribbean and Africa, and these traitors. There are two camps. Okay. The African race is not monolithic. It's not one block. There are on one side the Pan-Africanists, and there are on the other side the traitors who work for our enemies.
Right. But it can be said, if you're looking at it from a different point of view, it can be said, and the Chinese will say, well, these people who are determined traitors, they were elected by the people. They put themselves up and the people voted them into power. So, again...
But you're talking about...
Yes, Ross Mackay.
They were not elected. They were not...
An election was held, and people were voted into power. So what other method is there to choose the leaders?
Like I deal with it then. All right. I could even go talk about the road where them said them build at Jamaica. Right? The road where them build start with a European consortium. That's why I asked the question, if we can build a road. Because the issue is not about Chinese, European identity. The issue is with us. The issue is with us not doing for us. You understand? So this road building, the major project what I'm doing in Jamaica, where them actually finish a project that was started, that was given to a European consortium to build a road from Linstead to Monique, which was supposed to be the first leg of the road. And them carried up on one of the ice mountain, the road there. That when you up there, you look down upon Mount Rasa. And the whole idea was to get rid of the whole of that. Now, when the European built it, them come across some technical problems because the land was slipping away and all them kind of thing there. And them run out of money. So China come and finish that leg of the road now and build and start build phase 2, the Spanish town end, and phase 3, the end from Manning to Ocho-Ras. You understand? But the road is not it easier for travel pan, but it's not the quality what we would did expect it, because we have too much hill to climb. The road is very foggy up there, so it's not like say, and it's very expensive. And what them say, the devil is in the detail, because the detail is the contract that these traitorous people make. They make contracts that give them 30 years, and them have to make certain amount of money. So if they don't make certain amount of money within that 30 years, when them supposed to hand back the something, then it continue in their thing. So it's like a never-ending situation, because at the price they are charging, because if them they charge a third of the price, the road would have full of traffic. But then deliberately overcharge upon it. And if you can drive a SUV, them charge you twice as much. And this is the whole, what I say, debt strategy that they are using. So, like I said, them don't have to capture you with shackle and chain again. Them capture you now with debt. So them come in now and them offer some invisible currency. Them do some work for you, way overpriced, and leave you out of the work altogether. That they do, and they can't find enough traitors around the world to do it, and particularly Africans. So I concur with what Mandingo said. The fight, the main fight that we have as Africans is amongst ourselves, between us and the traitors. That's our main fight, because we have enough black people that build road, can build road. We have enough black inventors. See, every minute now you see people start show who are black inventor, though, who did invent this and who did invent that. But me know a man in a Jamaica, them show him on the YouTube, and invent a car to run without water. Everybody are talk about global warming, and all this foolishness. Right? And him make a car, well, him not, I shouldn't say make the car, him make a system that allows the car to run without water. And the Jamaican government block him from get money. If that was a Chinese company coming, that thing they would have did take over Jamaica. But nobody wants car to run on water. So them block him. So all our little innovation and inventions and our ability to perform we are being clipped. Them are clip wing in every step of the way, and our own people are doing it. This is why now you can come with an argument to say, well, the Chinese say, well, we invite them come. We never invite them like Mandingo, so we never invite them there. And the criminal them invite them people who are take bribe, because China offer them bribe. Because them their contract, even a idiot wouldn't sign it, even the person what we call a ring buto wouldn't sign the no contract. They cannot know in it way. Nothing at all is in there for us.
Yeah. Let me say this. Let me say this, Tarka, because you do not understand. I have to let you understand.
No, Mandingo. Let's get Mandingo, before you start. No, hold on, Mandingo. I'm going to come in. Before you start, this is a discussion, and if the discussion only go one way, I have to put the counter narrative. That's my job as a host. I have to put the counter narrative, what other people be thinking. Well, if we never invite them, what am I doing? Of course we invite them. So as a host, remember it's not me that thinks so. I have to put the counter argument.
What I'm saying, you're the one who is putting the counter argument. And I'm explaining why the counter argument is wrong. That is what I'm doing. I am a radio presenter, so I know about hosting and presenting things. I have explained why the counter argument is wrong. We did not invite them. Traitors invited them. And that's a fact. And why I'm saying that I have to let you who pose in these counter arguments on behalf of those who pose those counter arguments is that you people who do not understand that these contracts and agreements that these traitors have made with the Chinese in the Caribbean and in Africa are not made public and divulged to the population of the countries. There are secret agreements with secret clauses. This is deliberate. There are hidden agreements that they do not allow the populations of the countries in the Caribbean and in Africa to see, because it would show the plain selling out of the interests of the people. I am not asking this. I am telling everyone this because I know this. I am not speculating. I know this. This is a fact. And not only that too, with the Chinese and the Indians, just like the Europeans, we owe them no favor. They are all parasites living off the resources of Africa and the Caribbean. The Chinese and the Indians and the Europeans cannot afford to feed their own people and cannot afford to conduct their society economically without the resources of Africa and the Caribbean. So we are the ones who are doing them a favor and not the other way around. They are parasites and leeches, and we must say what it is. There are parasites, leeches, and bloodsuckers who, as Walter Rodney said, are deliberately underdeveloping our countries in Africa and the Caribbean so that their economies and their people can have a good standard of living. If the resources of the Caribbean and Africa were not available to these parasites from China, Europe, and India, there would be famine in these countries. They could not feed themselves, and their civil populations would be killing each other. The only reason why China and India and Europe are stable relatively is because they are living off the food and other natural resources from Africa and the Caribbean. And this must be understood perfectly and clearly by our people. And the only reason why they are able to do what they are doing is because, as usual, there are traitors, misleaders, who must be removed. You talk about they were elected in elections. Okay, they were elected in elections. But people do not elect politicians to rob and to murder them, which is what they are doing. So even if you elect someone, you don't leave it as, oh, I elected them. You are supposed to monitor them. And if they do anything which is wrong and against your interests as a people, it is your duty to remove them. So we must not have this naive attitude that because you elect, you leave it at that. All politicians must be monitored by the people. And this is why Marcus Garvey said in the Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey that there can be no government without the people. Therefore, government must be an expression of the will of the people, not the will of the politicians, the will of the people. And this is why in Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean and in Africa, this is why the misleaders and the traitors have not made the Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey a compulsory textbook in the school system, because to educate our people from they are very young in the principles of Marcus Messiah Garvey, the greatest African leader ever, would be contrary to their treacherous and traitorous role.
All right. So Ras McCoy, they want to come in?
Yes. Well, you see what now? You see this thing where you this class where you play the devil advocate with, where you're talking about this election process and we elect them. We never elect them. Because you only have choice between 2 or 3 set of thieves. You don't have no choice for decent and honorable people. When the people who go to the polls in Jamaica or any country in the world for that matter don't have any choice. From a man saying I'm going to be a politician is a criminal that. Because he might look power. Why is he looking power? He might look for something. You understand? So anybody who thinks that them can go to the poll, well, let me tell you what you do when you go to the poll. When you go to the poll, you hand and you go to the vote and you vote, you hand your power over to the politician to advocate for you for the next, until the next election come. And when the next election come, you are faced with the same problem that you did have in the first election. 2 set of teeth or 3 set of teeth. How much Pan-Africanists you can vote for in this so-called democratic system? You can't vote, you can't see them. And anyone of them you see are going like that, as soon as them reach up there, you see them views start change. So this is why China can come in now and outdo the Europeans and the Arabs and at their game. You understand? Because it was the European with Greek and Rome was start the whole thing, and then the Arab them with the desert Arabs and the Mohammedans, and then the Ottoman Empire. And them bring the system where we come face. You know, this modern system of slavery in the last 2,000 years. You understand? Them bring it come to we now and them are tell you about this democracy. Because democracy is the weakest link. This is why they have to get rid of Mugabe, because when we have one strong leader, it had to change in mind. But when you have something now, when you have a democracy now, you just move him. You just get the parliament to move him. You understand? And it's simple. So them know say democracy is the weakest link. And this is why everyone in the democracy. And I can tell you, in Jamaica, no poor man can get elected in Jamaica. That might be possible in the United Kingdom. But not any poor man you see get elected in Jamaica is a rich man, a back him, and him a work for a rich man. Because him have to buy the people vote. And Marcus Garvey learned that long time. That's why I hear man I sing say, them sell out Marcus Garvey for rice and peas. Because Jamaica people licky and not black people, African people licky. So you can buy them out cheap. You understand? You don't have to give them land and all them things there. A belly full. Let's say every one of them are ball and suffer how things bad, and soon as the election campaign come, $3,000 come, I could go up on the bandwagon. You see them cock off them bottom on the truck and the bus. True bus window and everything a chant. For somebody who mean them no good. So going back now to the issue, this is how come now the Chinese now can exploit this situation that we just described to them advantage. And the European can do the same, and the Indian will come and do the same. Right? Because how much the biggest company then in Jamaica did owned by white companies. White people, Jamaican white people, so-called Jamaican white people. Right? And when they sell it, did they sell it to any black people? No. Them sell it to some European. Them would have a company called Dennis and Geddes. Them never send it to the Jamaican public, offer the shares to the Jamaican public and make the Jamaican public own interested in it. No, they never did that. They sold it to Guinness. And we can see Grace Kennedy and all them other companies that go the same way. We used to make coconut oil and all them things there Jamaica. No, we can't do it. That come from abroad. They used to tell us that the coconut oil bad. It's not good for you. And bring refined oil. They used to tell us that brown sugar bad for you. And granulated sugar dear and all them things. When it's the worst one. So it is because you see, people mix up intelligence with literacy. So when them say, oh, you can read and write, people think say you're bright. That's not necessarily the case. Because most of the people that we see with PhD are some idiot them. They have no pride in themselves, in them race, in them family. Because if they did, they wouldn't treat the country the way they treat it. They wouldn't treat Jamaica so, they wouldn't treat Barbados so, they wouldn't treat Nigeria so, they wouldn't treat Ethiopia so. They would have never do that. You understand?
Yeah. All right. What I'm going to do now, there's quite a few points coming up. So let me just post up some of them and we can talk around them. There's one here. I'm going to post it. Yeah, I think the only way to attack the threat is to remove these labels. What's that? And form one country.
As the Caribbean and link with the
as the Caribbean, the mindset.
Progressive African
progressive nation. Well, of course, yes.
That's a unity strength that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But it must be understood that, take for example Zimbabwe. President Mugabe was overthrown by traitorous puppets who were helped by the Chinese. This must be understood. And of course, the Europeans were glad at that because they had racist sanctions from the European Union and the US Zedera sanctions against President Mugabe, because sanctions is economic terrorism. It's designed to destroy your economy and to demoralize your people so that they rise up and overthrow those who are fighting for their own interests. So sanctions are a form of warfare. And the Chinese were the ones who supported the coup against President Mugabe. And check this, while the Chinese and Europeans are fierce rivals, both of them cooperated in the overthrow of President Mugabe. This must be understood. It is the same situation that happened in Ghana in 1966 with President Kwame Nkrumah. The British and the USA, Europeans, worked through traitors in Ghana to overthrow President Kwame Nkrumah. They tried the same thing with President Sekou Touré in Guinea, but that was defeated. That was when Kwame Touré, President Kwame Nkrumah, who was residing in Guinea at the time, defeated a Portuguese mercenary force that invaded Guinea to try to overthrow the regime. What I'm saying is, as Marcus Garvey said, the only thing that people respect is power. Simple. Marcus Garvey said, man or woman is not moved by prayers or petitions, but is moved by the force that forces them to move, whether they want to move or not. And the only way that we as African people can achieve things for our own benefit is that we have to empower ourselves economically and militarily. And the only way that we can become an effective military force is, first, we have to empower ourselves economically, because you cannot be a military power if you don't have a strong economic base.
All right.
And this has to do with self-reliance. And as I said, China, India, and Europe and others, they all covet Africa and the Caribbean. Africa is the richest continent on planet Earth. And this is why Africans are at risk of extinction. It's no joke, because they want Africa, but they do not want us as Africans. This is a serious thing. And the attacks that we are facing is on all fronts. Politically, militarily, religiously, on all fronts, in every area of life.
All right, there's another point here which I want to flag up as well. It says, I never heard of a host country learning its guest language. The Caribbean is backward. So I guess what they're saying.
What I was saying earlier, that in South Africa and elsewhere, the Chinese were pushing a thing, just like how Arabs and Europeans were pushing their languages. Languages power, you know. So when they impose their languages on us, it is a way of defeating and demoralizing us. Let us remember our ancestors. This is why Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, all great African leaders know about the power of culture and so on. What did they do when our people were transported as prisoners of war to the Caribbean and what is now called Canada and the USA? They deliberately destroyed the ability for our people to speak our African languages. Why? Because people who have their own languages, it gives them a sense of maintaining their identity and organization. So one of the ways is to destroy your languages, which is your identity. Because if your identity is destroyed...
All right, Mandingo, I think what I'm picking up from this question as well, they're saying if these Caribbean islands, say for instance, the Caribbean countries, supposedly, most of them, supposedly independent, and they have, all of them have an African majority, which one of them is teaching an African language? Is there any island that give children choices to learn an African language in the educational system?
No.
Well, I think that's what the question is targeting. That's what the question is targeting. How can you have the Caribbean and no African language is taught? That's why it is so backward.
Yes, but listen, I am saying it is deliberate. It is deliberate. In the 1960s, in my introduction, I said that Marcus Garvey Jr. and myself and others formed the African Nationalist Union Party in 1968. We are in 2020 now. One of the things that we fought for and demanded was the teaching of Kiswahili in Jamaican schools. We're talking 1968. It's not that the JLP and the PNP and others never heard, but they did not want that because of their slave mentality.
Right.
So this is not a new thing. In 1968, it was the policy, one of the policies of the African Nationalist Union, of which I was a member, for the teaching of Kiswahili in Jamaican and other schools in the Caribbean.
Okay. But just before you come in, Ras McCoy, but we're in 2000 now. Is there a groundswell in any of the Caribbean territories from the general populace for African languages to be introduced into the educational system? Is there petitions? Is there demands from the general population? Is there any such movement?
Well, you have people like ourselves at demand them thing, but most of the people then is ignorant in these places, and they are deliberately kept so. Them deliberately kept so. Jamaica, Barbados, and most of these places are still colony. Them still have a governor general. The queen is still the head of state. All of the civil servant, the police, the military, are sworn to the Queen. So these places, we live there, but it's not ours because we haven't claimed it. When the slave trade, when them did finish the slave trading, or said them finish the slave trade, they compensated the white planters and the white slave owners. They never compensated black people up to this day. Is other day them just don't pay off the white slave owners. Just the other day, must say, during the pandemic, what them are calling?
Well, 2015.
Eh?
2015.
Yeah. So at them time that we know it, but at 2015 it done. But at them time them actually tell us that them don't pay.
A correction after you finish. A correction after you finish.
Okay then. So what happened now? We're not going to, from these people who are running this country, we're not going to get none of them things. Because if we can't get Marcus Garvey in school, we can't even get Miss Lou in school. Miss Lou was a champion of a version of a whip type of thing. And we can't even get that, which is a mix-up English. Much less we go get Swahili. You understand? Because these people, them, yeah, like I said, them is not, they don't see themselves as African. They see themselves as West Indian or Caribbean. They don't see themselves as African. So there's no way that them want to go up on an African road or in an African bus. So this is the problem that we face. You understand? And so we have to come from the grassroots, as they would say. We have to come from that level there and teach the people. And that's what Rasta teach the people from, but the more Rasta try to teach the people, and more them fight against Rasta. You understand? So anybody who come up to help them start attack those people. Anyone who come to help the population, and so you see them attack all of the great African leaders. Them can't spend no time. In fact, Mugabe, I think him spend what? 1980?
Yes, from 1980.
Yeah, 30-something years him spent. And him own people was the traitor to him, and the white people overthrew him, and the China people overthrew him. And the traitor them overthrew him. You understand? And people say, okay, why him stay so long? But who him was ever left in a power? Because that was the question was always asked. Who him get handed to? In a Venezuela, you see Chavez, him dead. And the man who take it over is have the same commitment as Chavez. You understand? Him have the same commitment. When a great African leader pass on or retire, who him get left it to? You see Cuba, Castro, move on. Him brother Raul take it up, no change. And next one come, very little change. But who we can pass the baton to when we get it? This is the problem.
Isn't that a failure of ourselves for not nurturing those behind us?
Well, because, like I said, the biggest war we face is amongst ourselves. It's not with the outsiders. The biggest war we face is with the traitors. Because it's the traitors that is getting in the way. You understand? Right. They are the one who are the shields. They, in fact, them are the real enemy, because if we never have traitors, if we never have pure Pan-Africanists and people who would love them brother and sister, them mother and father and so on, and treating them well, white people would have to just stand up in amazement.
All right. So I'd like to go on to another point, another question.
No, add correction.
Yes, Mandingo, we'll bring that in, but we have to keep flowing. But very mixed feelings about this discussion. The Caribbean is way more in debt to the US and than China, by far. It speaks volume that the US is constantly pointing the finger at China. So you can rope that into your answer as well.
Yes, the thing about it is that the correction that I was making with the 2015 ending of the money paid, it was not to the racists who controlled the plantations. What happened was that the British regime at the time, in 1834, when they paid that 20 million pounds, which was 40% of the annual budget for the British government regime at the time, they borrowed that money, and so it had to be repaid. So it was only in 2015 that the money that was raised was repaid.
Yeah.
But the actual ones who control the plantations also, they had gotten the money already. But the money that was raised to pay them, it was raised by the government, and it is that money that was repaid after many years.
Yeah, the same thing.
That ended in 2015. I'm just explaining that.
Yeah, just at the detail that. Yeah.
And in terms of that person who asked that question, that sister, it is not a matter that the countries in the Caribbean are more in debt to the US than China. The fact of the matter is that we do not want to be in debt neither to the US nor China, because both of them use this debt trap to colonize our people in a neo-colonial way. So it's not a either or either. Both of them are our enemies. It's not either or either. And there's an example of Sri Lanka with the Chinese, for example, who lent money for some port in Sri Lanka. They couldn't pay it. And what the Chinese did, because of the terms of what they did, they have taken over the port in Sri Lanka, as an example.
Them do that in Kenya as well.
Precisely.
Well, from what may hear, them just took over something in Jamaica the other day.
Yeah, Kingston Harbour, yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? Say that again.
Kingston Wharves Limited. Them buy it out.
Yes, what had happened, it was owned by some European entity before, and then they came in and then got the final part, I mean, you know, percentage. That's what I'm. So is that same kind of debt trap situation?
All right. So one thing you brought up a very interesting point. We don't want to be in debt to the USA. We don't want to be in debt to China, but we need finance in order to develop the country. Where do we get it?
Well, look, man.
When you say finance to develop the country, paper, which is paper money, which is how they represent thing. That is not the wealth of a country, you know. The wealth of a country are the natural resources, including the human resources of the population. Paper money in and of itself cannot do anything.
No.
And this is why we have things like so-called devaluation and which are scams that the Europeans use.
But I'm saying with the systems.
What is needed is a Pan-Africanist groups within these countries winning that struggle to be able to engage the productive forces of our human population to build things for our own selves. This is something that we can do ourselves. It is a false idea to think that we need so-called dollars or yuan and thing from these non-African countries to build our economies. Because we have the natural resources, but these natural resources must be allied with the human resources in our respective countries. But why is this not being done? Because in almost all the countries in the Caribbean and in Africa, traitors are the ones working on behalf of these non-African imperialists to prevent us from being self-reliant and independent. So we have a situation where it's a constant war that is going on. This is why you have constant propaganda wars against Pan-Africanists. This is why Pan-Africanists are murdered. This is why Pan-Africanists are imprisoned, etc. It's a constant war. We are in a situation of war.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just before Ras McCoy comment, just before you come in, Ras McCoy, I just want to throw another little teaser into the ring.
No, let me finish that question.
30 years ago, China was not what it is today. It was considered a third world country. So, building on what Mandingo say, who or where did China get their resources and money from to develop? Who did they borrow it from?
No, all right.
Did they borrow?
Yeah, this is the point I was about make, right?
All right, good.
Money in a Western or the European term is represent units of labor. Yeah, but because it is able to manipulate, it is not. It is a variable. It's not a constant. If it was a constant, it would be okay. But them can make it go up or down. This is what them doing at Zimbabwe. Them turn it from a strong currency until you need nearly $1 trillion for $1. You understand? So anytime you want to crash the economy, that's what you do. As long as you're working with their economy. If you're not working with their economy, look, if you look at the people them in America, some white people in America, them call themselves Amish. They hardly deal with anything. Just a few things them go out and work about. The same thing with the rest of them in Jamaica. Once you start living indigenously, you can become self-sufficient. I help you and you help me. It's money them use to bridge the I help you and you help me, you know, that them use the money for to bridge the I help you and I help you. So that's why I say I promise to pay the bearer for this labor. For this work done, this service done. You understand? That's all the money is. So you can do that. We used to have a bartering system. We're not going at the ins and out of cow and dog and puss and all them things. We're not going at that. But there is other ways of trading. So if we want to build a house, we're wrong with 4 people, then they answer, okay, I have to help you build a house, you're going to help me build a house, you're going to help me build a house, and so on. And the 4 I want to build a house for themselves. Each other house, because the 4 want to help one another. This is what we're not doing, we're not helping each other.
Brother, you see,
and these people come with them confetti money.
Cooperative thing of building house. This is an African tradition, you know. Whenever a house or anything needed to be built, just like what you hear Ras McCoy said, that was how we did things. We pulled together Arambe, Kiswahili, and built together. No so-called paper money was involved. What happened? We had our own economic system of bartering, etc. What the Europeans did was they deliberately destroyed our economic system of bartering and otherwise and introduced their paper currency as a method of economic control and destruction for our people. That's what they did. And what they did is that they forced our people to stop using our bartering system and force them to engage in this artificial printing money thing that they created and controlled for their own benefit.
Not
so
only
we need to come back to a system whereby, in other words, we have to devise our own economic system. The reason why China was able to reach where it's reached is, one, the Chinese under the leadership of Chairman Mao did what Marcus Garvey said we Africans should do. What was the first thing that Chairman Mao did? was that he defeated the traitors and expelled the Europeans.
Yeah, but it is
the same thing. It is China to this day as we are speaking. They do not allow non-Chinese to come into their country and reside and to set up any bases and that type of thing. And it's the same thing that has to happen in Africa and the Caribbean. There is no other way. This is why there must be no non-African military force in Africa and the Caribbean.
Yeah, but I'm dwelling on the economic point. What was the instance that catapulted China in terms of where it is today, the second largest economy in the world? What event happened?
But I just explained to you that first thing that Mao did was defeated the traitors, expelled them, and then concentrated on using the skills of people in China to work for the benefit of China. And this is the same process. And
but I don't think that accounts for China's massive growth. It's mass growth of its economy.
No,
that alone cannot account for that.
But listen, without that I'm talking about, this massive growth would never have occurred.
Oh yes, I agree. The Cultural Revolution played a fundamental, laid the base.
No, I'm talking about before the Cultural Revolution. The expulsion was in the 40s. That was before the Cultural Revolution, which was in the 1960s.
The Cultural Revolution are late something.
It's late thing.
No.
It's late.
But the point I'm trying to get at is, yes, China moved from what we would consider a Marxist-Leninist state to a virtually capitalist, to have a capitalist outlook. There's probably more Chinese billionaires than in China than anywhere else on this earth. So then, what was the scenario that transferred China from a very feudal society into the powerhouse that it is today?
All right, I can tell you. Him tell you part of it already, right? But you see, when Chairman Mao died, most of them dead, you have an ex-brother take over. And a boy named Kissinger from America got there. And because they want things to be made cheaply, these greedy people always want cheap labor. Their whole economy was built on slave labor. You understand? And China had something like 800 million people them time. 800 million people them time. And so it was a massive workforce that could be utilized, get things cheap. So all the companies them now start building in China and India with the cheap labor there. That was what helped build up China.
That's right.
China as a market, you have to understand, say, is numbers that do it. China have a market of 1.3 or 4 billion people, whatever the case may be. America have 380 million. So it have a market 3 to 4 times the size of the United States. You understand? So that is a marketplace. So the more people trade, the stronger the economy come. You understand? So yes, you can get it. In fact, China should have a whole lot more billionaire than that. But China, what most people don't understand is that the rich people practice communism and tell the poor people to practice capitalism. Because the rich people is communal amongst them one another. Them share them wealth amongst them one another. If you see them, you see Bill Gates with Warren Buffett and all of them and invest with them one another, working together and working communally together, like what we talk about with the African system. Them do that at the very top and then left me and you for fight over the trickle down what come from them, which is that what they call capitalism. You understand? So we can see that clearly now in a 2007 when they had the crash. Under capitalism, no bank should have been rescued, no company should have been rescued. But what? Them national, them never even nationalize it, them give the bank all of the people their money, poor people money, because them are practice for them communism. But poor people, them tell them to go practice capitalism, free market and all them things. But for the market not free, for the market controlled. And that's what China did. China controlled the market. And when China controlled the market, it decided what it was going to build and how it was going to build it and how cheap it was going to build it. Japan did the same after war. They wanted Japan to just make. Japan said, no, we was a world power. Japan, during World War II, Japan had aircraft carrier up on the sea. So them say, you know, but reduce we to that because you drop nuclear bomb power. You understand? We're going to make cars, and them started some little tiny cars, so. Don't go back to that.
All right, yes. So
is the same
the point is, because we have to move on because there's quite a few questions, you know.
Yes.
We gotta keep it moving. So the point is, as you say, the Kissinger-Nixon era was when China was seen as the workforce of the world, and the big companies and everybody moved their workshop into China, and hence China got catapulted to where it is today.
One important thing we mustn't forget is that China did it on their terms, not on the European terms. They did it on their terms, and we are doing it on everybody else's terms except our terms.
But that brings me on to the next point, because there's quite a few points, questions I want to get through. But all I'm saying to everybody listening, bear in mind, Africa now has a population of 1.3 billion. So the blueprint is there for Africa, as African to internalize and become the manufacturing base of at least the Pan-African world, of which the Caribbean is part. Okay, there's another point I want to put up here. And this is saying the USA is only waking up to the threat of China. More to the point, the US is waking up to the fact that it's powerless to counter the growing influence of China. So basically what they said, do we think, for instance, in the Caribbean, China is now so entrenched that even if America wanted to do something about it, the ship of sailing, they can't. China's there now entrenched, and they're there to stay. Is that how you see it?
No.
The thing about it, which must not be forgotten or which must be understood, was that in the early 70s, when Nixon and his foreign secretary, Henry Kissinger, went to China to get cheap labor in China, that only came about because the US wanted to cut the power of the USSR, which was headed by Russia. And so they were playing, the USSR and China had communist parties in control. So what Kissinger and Nixon did was that they played both communist party powers against each other. So they supported the Chinese by going there, which cut the power of the USSR. And at the same time, the mistake that they made, that they discovered too late in their greed, was that by making China the industrial manufacturer for US companies, they were necessarily transferring technological know-how to the Chinese, which the Chinese did not have before. And once you teach or give technological techniques to a people, you cannot take that back out of their brain. So the Chinese use the technology, because for them to manufacture these things, they had to have the technology to do it. They were given this, and by the time the greedy US capitalists realized, it was too late, because what the Chinese started to do was to make their own products using their technology. And this is why the US, they started to complain that, oh, this is intellectual theft. The intellectual theft, because they realize now that the Chinese were setting up their own duplicate companies and exporting their products to other countries, which the US and others normally would have exported to. But by then, the horse had bolted. They could not return.
Yeah, that's
and the US also, what they are doing right now as I speak, they are continuing something that Barack Obama did. They are increasing their military presence in the South China Seas as a way of trying to terrorize and demoralize China. Check it.
Okay, but dealing with the question,
pivot to the east. Pivot.
Yeah, dealing with the question. The question was directed at China's presence in the Caribbean region. Is it too late for the US to do anything about it? That's what the question is directed at.
No, not for the Caribbean. Might be for other area, but not for the Caribbean. The Caribbean is directly in the United States backyard. And Mike Pompeo went on a Caribbean tour, and I met the Jamaican people and all these other countries know where at that. They have to tone down these barriers. And this whole so-called lockdown is all about TM in China. You understand? And the lockdown exposed how weak the European economy is, because even like a cloth face mask them couldn't even provide for them doctor, because they were so greedy and make China make even the simplest of product by themselves. You understand? Something where some dressmaker could have make. And so for months, them was in a chaos with them plan. You understand? Is a plan? But when people say, oh, people are catching sicknesses, but we know say not that going. But we just assure you, it exposed the weakness of the European economy or the northern economy, because the north them come from the west, they come from the north. These people economy is going down, and this is why Trump get elected in America, because the American people want back them economy. They want to be building their own products, and they want to be exporting their products. And China is not going to give up that easily. And this is why we have this is why we see them ban, what the company that name? Yahweh?
Why? Yeah.
And then now, you see them, I deal with TikTok, right name TikTok or whatever.
TikTok, yes, TikTok, yes.
So this is just the beginning of what is to come. That them about clip the Chinese wing, and
it's a technological war.
Yes, and that is a war for control, you know. So the
all right,
the greatest step.
The reason I ask that, because as you know, China has the Belt Road Initiative, otherwise known as the Silk Road, you know, the ancient Silk Road. China's trying to, the Silk Road. China's trying to rebuild that. I'll put up this again, right? And you can see it on the screen. All these millions and billions that was given to these countries, in order for them to receive it, what had to happen they had to, one, denounce Taiwan, and two, sign up to this initiative. That was prerequisite to them receiving their money. They all had to sign up to that initiative. So that's the reason why I ask, is China entrenching itself in such a way that the West soon will be powerless to do anything about it? Because remember, it don't stop at the Caribbean, it's gone into Latin and South America, it's gone all throughout Africa, it's gone throughout a lot of Asia, it's gone even into some parts of Europe.
It's a global
So it's a global thing, besides.
It's a global power, it's a global superpower battle that is occurring. And with regards to Mike Pompeo, the foreign secretary for the US, he wasn't successful the other day. What he did, he came to Jamaica, got Andrew Onis as a willing subservient individual, because he wanted to have a meeting with other state prime ministers in Kingston to depose and overthrow the government of President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. And the only person who entertained him was Andrew Onis. Mayor Motley from Barbados, in Dominica, Trinidad and Tobago, they refuse to send and to come to that meeting that Pompeo wanted them to come to, because they said that they were not going to interfere to be overthrowing the government of Venezuela. So to their credit and to the discredit of the Andrew Onis regime in Jamaica, who were the only ones to entertain Mike Pompeo.
Yeah. But what I want to say is that visit of Mike Pompeo is just the first shot across the bow. You understand? The war not started.
No, it has started, man. It's continuing.
It's like it a warm up. It's not getting a full swing. The warm up.
Skirmishing.
Yeah. So
the war is on.
Wait, him go down there. Him tell Andrew, cause Jamaica closer to the United States, apart from Barbados.
Yes.
Yeah. The other one them close to Venezuela. And the reason why the other one them reject it is because they don't want the Venezuelan overwhelm them with refugees. You understand? So you have to understand this. That when the Barbadian look and say I'm side with America, twice in population are gonna be Venezuelan. So him not gonna have no talk in our own country again. Because that's what happened
in Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere.
So them people that it was hard to get them on board. But that is with Venezuela, but with China now is a different matter.
That's right.
With China now, China they're far, far away. Right? And America and Britain have fleet warship, a patrol the Caribbean already, and some false things about drugs. You understand? And I take people off of the ICs, I carry out piracy from the ICs, I search people boat and all them kind of thing there. And I lock down Cuba and all them thing there. So these are the threats that America sooner or later will come when this war start getting to full swing. Because America is a bankrupt country, but it's very dangerous because its back is against the wall. But it still have the biggest military might on the planet. It probably have around 25 or 30 aircraft carrier. China only have one, and I think one in the making. And is the one what them have is a one old Russian one what them modify. You understand? So America can, the South China Sea, if America want, it can put 10 aircraft carrier group down there.
Plus, well, that's what they are doing.
Yeah,
that's what
bases in Japan. Them have a island of Japan. Them have bases in Japan. Them have bases in Japan, bases in the Philippines, bases in South Korea.
So what are we saying? No.
China.
What they're doing is a thing of encircling China. This is why I mentioned that Barack Obama was the one who introduced this encirclement, and he called it pivot to the east. Pivot to the east. That is all about that. Whereby about 2/3 of the U.S. naval thing is concentrating on China.
Yeah.
What I just want to comment. What we got to be careful of. We don't. You see, we are getting caught up in this Sino-American thing, and we then forgetting ourselves. What are we as Africans doing?
No, we get caught up in a hit.
No. How can we then use the situation as was when America and the Soviet Union was canceling each other out, and leaders in Africa could play each other against each other, and to make gains out of that? Surely we're in a similar situation.
Yeah, but
America is seeing what China's doing in the Caribbean. America is seeing what China's doing in Africa. So America reply, because look, China is putting down infrastructure which is benefiting the day-to-day needs of the ordinary people.
Yeah, but
America is offering military bases and military hardware, so-called against alien and terrorist forces. Now, for the ordinary man and woman in the street, which one of those powers is benefiting them the most? So whose heart? When it comes to heart and mind, whose heart or mind do you think is being captured here?
But what I'm saying is that there's a wrong question being posed, because if we are to deal with African progress and independence, it cannot be on the basis of either for China or the Chinese or the Europeans. It is to do with what we do as Africans to empower ourselves.
That's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making.
And single objective.
That is the point that I'm making.
Of anyone else except our own Pan-African camp.
That's precisely the point I'm making. Like
at the very beginning, that all non-Africans, Chinese, Europeans, etc., are seen about their interests. And
anyway, time's beating us. So we got 5 minutes, last 5 minutes. This point is very interesting. What was put here, that they said in Azania, Chinese are classified as black. You know, so we're going to bear that in mind. In Azania, any Chinese can turn up and claim to be black, and they're treated as black. So we have a big problem there.
We have to remove that traitorous leadership that would allow that, because it is the same in Azania that they are pushing to have Mandarin in the schools that our people resisted, just like how the youths in Soweto rose up and resisted the introduction of the Boer language.
Okay, another point here. It's good that you mentioned Zimbabwe. With the Caribbean and Africa nations not face similar heavy repercussions from any actions.
But of course, when you're fighting for your freedom and independence, my brothers and sisters, what do you think? We are in a situation of war. Our enemies, be they European, Chinese, or whatever, they're not going to stand by idly and see African people working.
Answers got to be short. Answers has to be short because we run out of time. Our greatest weakness is our failure to appreciate our strength as African nation. It is true. Very much. We're always seeing ourselves as weak.
That is why I said we
must
continue. This is why I said we must continue to work as Pan-Africanists to implement the Black Print solution of Marcus Garvey. There is no other way. It's a war
over and above the language. Only they are pushing the cultures. through Confucius schools, and you see. So what they're saying, over and above anything else, China's using soft power. So soft power is that they're pushing their language, just like what the British did, the Europeans did.
I said that earlier.
Yeah, man, yeah, it's all right. We're just reinforcing the points that the people are saying. So it's just to say in Africa now, the Francophone, the Anglophone, everything, China is leading down the same way. It's just bringing up the points. What's this one?
They use soft power and hard power.
This one is saying, I feel Barbados is only becoming a republic to separate from Europe and run to China. Free of Euro.
Not necessarily. You know why not necessarily? It is for the job. It is the duty of Pan-Africanists in Barbados to prevent that from happening. And they have to do that in alliance with Pan-Africanists outside of Barbados.
Right. There's no lesser evil. China and USA are imperialist enemies. Precisely.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good one.
Our salvation only lies within ourselves. No other way.
Okay,
Nobody can save us except us.
And we have one here. The development of Africa and the Caribbean is tied together and may be realized through trading. Precisely. That's the way forward.
That's why Marcus Garvey established the Black Star Line. The main aim of the Black Star Line was to facilitate economic trading and empowerment between Africans wherever we are.
So, all right. I know we are mindful. All right. Yeah, carry on, Ross McCoy.
If we don't want to take responsibility for our own existence,
right.
Then we'll go.
What do the panelists think about delinking? Delink ourselves. What do you think about delinking ourselves? Say what China did back in the day when it delinked itself from the world, closed its borders, closed itself off, reorganized itself, and emerged a stronger nation.
That should have gone a long time.
But that's the only way that we can achieve. That's why I said that what Chairman Mao did with Chow Enlai and others was what Marcus Garvey worked and told us that we have to do. We have to close and expel our
issues of concern is that there are some of in our midst who think the Chinese are natural allies, and believe that the Chinese cannot colonize us.
Those are people who are politically and racially unaware. And people like that are people who the Chinese would use.
All criminal and thief them there, man.
Eh?
You say all criminal and thief them there.
Yes, exactly. It's only a stupid person, and I use that word, will think that Chinese and other non-Africans are for our own African interests.
If you're not stupid, them are thief. And enough of them are thief.
Okay.
Some of them
quickly. Like I'm saying, we're in a few minutes left because we've got to wind up. This is about the question about the what was it? In real terms, what is it that the Chinese did to get money and resources to develop the economy? Said they don't think the question has been adequately answered.
But listen, but it was answered because we explained about the technological transfer due in the early 70s with Nixon and Kissinger, because they wanted cheap products for the capitalists to make a lot of money in the States. And this is why places like Detroit in the States, Motor City and others, so a lot of our people and others, blue-collar workers and so on, lost jobs and were destitute and became like ghost cities and so on.
Okay, what it says here
about the technological transfer which the Chinese use.
Yeah, well, what he said is that you're just speaking in too broad and general terms for his liking.
In regard to what question?
In regard to that question, the same question. about China getting resources to develop itself.
Well, I think we did explain that clearly.
We explain that with the technological transfer. To manufacture, you have to have the technological transfer information, which was given by the US companies, so that the factories, the workers in China, could make the products. And one of the things that messed up Britain too was Thatcher in her fight with the union.
There's another point. The same brother said Africa is not brave enough to de-link, he thinks.
It's wrong for Conan Lee to generalize about Africa not brave enough to de-link. Pan-Africanists are brave enough, and we know that we have to stand on our own.
And this is the final point. Pan-Africanists need to stand strong and push the de-linking agenda. Right on, brother. Yes.
Which is the Marcus Garvey agenda.
Precisely.
Which is the Marcus Garvey agenda.
That's right. That's it.
So, the Marcus Garvey agenda.
Unfortunately, time has beaten us. We could carry on for another hour and we still want to do this.
Set up for and it never come true.
Yeah.
That the whole AU did set up for, for Africa trade banks and one of the and everything, that it did set up for. And everybody go around it till them get all China to build them building. Nobody want to do for self. And if you're not able to do for self, you're going to suffer.
Well, I'd just like to end by saying, to highlight a bright spot in Africa, something that I think the rest of Africa could learn from. When Ethiopia set out to build the Grand Renaissance Dam, I think it went to the World Bank, it went to the IMF, it went to all the usual suspects, and they all turned it down. They all said no. So Ethiopia thought, well, we want to build this dam, so where are we going to get the money? You know how we got the money? It raised the money from its own population by issuing government bonds. And they managed to raise that $5+ billion, and now the dam is completed. So if that's not an example to the rest of Africa, I don't know what is. And the Caribbean and African people everywhere else. The answer lies within. It lies right here.
And who was the teacher and greatest practitioner of that? Marcus Garvey.
Precisely.
It's not anything new. So this is why all we have to do
Ethiopia actually put it into practice. Implemented it and showed that it's possible and it works. The dam is now
implementation complete. Is not a one-off, it's constant implementation.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Hopefully, this will be an example to the rest of Africa that self-reliance is the way forward.
It is the only way.
Yes.
It is the only way.
I know. But like I'm saying,
it's the only way.
We know it's the only way, but very few are seeing that. Very few are seeing it, and very few are acting it out. So that's why I am glad to see that Ethiopia did it to show the rest of Africa and the Pan-African world that it can be done. Now we have a blueprint that it can be done. That dam, which they thought Ethiopia could never build because it was boycotted by all the Western donors and so forth, refused to back them. They raised the money from within their own population.
And this is the point where you did ask earlier, you see, where you asked where we are going to get the money from. All the while, people like Jamaica, we need foreign investment.
It's with us. That's it.
Me and Mandingo did already tell us we can do the thing by ourselves.
Yeah, look to the people. That's what I was saving that to the last to say.
Well, to build the Maypen bypass road. It wasn't no Chinese or no European build the Maypen bypass road and other roads in Jamaica.
Yes, but where did the capital come from to build it?
Right.
Where did the money come from?
Jamaica, we don't need no more thing there.
No, but I'm just giving a practical example what people would ask. If you're going to build a bridge, they're going to say you need hard cash. When you build the Maypen bypass, where did the government raise the money to build that?
We got money from Jamaica and money was also borrowed. Some of the money was also borrowed, but we did it.
Precisely.
When them was also building Portmore, a Matalan them build the Portmore.
It was from outside, exactly.
Yeah, until them come thief it the other day and give it to a foreign company.
Well, I hope this discussion, like I said, we could carry on for another hour, but time has beaten us. But one of the things I'm glad from building up, we came to the point and that the conclusion is, and the answer is to everybody, as you say, Ras McCoy, as you say, Mandingo, we don't need China. We don't need the Americans. The answer
we only need ourselves.
You look at the African continent, there's an abundance of engineers, civil, electronics, electrical, the skills are there. The skills are there, and yet they are fleeing the continent for what they think greener pastures.
I just want to give one example. You have a man, him own about 6 airports in England.
The Nigerian,
Nigerian
how much him own Africa. Ask him how much him own Africa.
Well, probably that wasn't profitable enough.
All of them can be profitable. Him make got to profit.
But Africa is on the up anyway. Africa is on the up.
The British Airport Authority sell him. And him turn it into something. And him, people like him, to Africa got turn that magic one.
Profitable.
And the British in Africa, and could have do that in Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, and all them countries there.
But you said maybe it wasn't profitable. But Europeans, Chinese, and others have always found Africa to be profitable.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So that's the thing.
That's the thing.
They have always foreigners.
I'm just speculating why he would have sunk his money here rather than there. That's all. It's just a speculation at the time, because I know he's a Wall Street. I know he's a Wall Street mogul. Anyway,
we don't trust one another.
We're running out of time. Brother Ndoga Man is here. It's time to change the energy. I'd like to thank all those who. All those viewers today who came in to make this a very enlightening, interesting discussion. I'd like to thank Brother Mandingo for his fantastic contribution, forceful as ever. I'd like to thank Ras McCoy for his very eloquent and thought-provoking deliveries. Brilliant. I think you help make this truly a special meeting. So now I'd like to turn to Brother Mani, who's sitting there patiently, and he will now change the energy for us while now we draw to a close.
Okay, Asante Sana, Santeni Sana, Baze, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think Ndugataka summed it up perfectly and gave the thanks, and I won't add to it because it was enlightening, and thank you so much. And I know I personally learned something as well, and I thought I knew something, so thank you very much, elders. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen.
Okay.
Can that be seen in Dugataka?
Yes, it's up now.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so this is the end of the ritual for the change in the energy ceremony that we do at the very beginning and at the end. And the energy that was generated, we don't want to change it. We want to send that out and share and capitalize on that energy that was raised today to thank the universal consciousness, the all, that's all within all of us, the spark within all of us, and also the powers and principles that we called into our presence wherever we may be to share with us, and the ancestors to help us to formulate these ideas, to help us to think of the way that we wish to manifest our objectives, and ask them now to take that back to their realms and assist us in manifesting those objectives. And that's what this end of the ritual will do. I will ring the chime 8 times, Allow the chime to go around you, over you, and through you. Become to continue to be in connection with the space, connection with the ancestors, the principles, the all, and thereby being in connection with each other. And have gratitude for them being with us, and again, to ask them to assist us in manifesting this great task of liberating African people worldwide. I'll ring it 8 times, because 8 is the spiritual number for power, spiritual power, political power that we need to generate and to act upon, that we have within us. I'll begin. Moja. Mbili. Tatu. Ine. Tana. Continue to breathe deeply. Sita. Maintain that connection between our spirit and our physical selves. Saba. Nane. And we finally end again on the words of power and affirmation. So if you wish to, please do follow after me, speak after me. Nguvu zote.
Nguvu zote.
Kwa watu wetu.
Kwa watu wetu.
Na mapenzi ya wote.
Na mapenzi ya wote.
Ni mapenzi yetu.
Ni mapenzi yetu.
Asanteni sana.
Asante sana, Brother Ndugu Imani. And again, to the viewers, thank you for tuning in again. And next week, we'll be back again with another thought-provoking, dynamic session. So until then, we all bid you kwaheri from the studio.